Alright, so this is Discourse number 4 for this week of October 16th. And this is we're going to talk about the video we watched on Tuesday called Blue Gold, about water.
And like the water wars that are to come. The first thing that I actually said to Brianna, who was sitting next to me during it, was a point that came up during the video, but it was about how when I went overseas, and I had been in Africa or in Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, most of the places that I went to, I realized that when I did go to get water or when I did go to purchase something to drink, it was always that Coca-Cola or Nestle was always way cheaper than a bottle of water. And that was something that kind of blew my mind, because I thought, we're supposed to, it's just, you'd think in a third world country that we would support the fact that we would want them to have clean water and drink water, and that, we try and help them in so many other ways, that I just thought, what a simple thing to be able to do is make water cheaper. Anyways, and it just showed me the power that these
consumerism has, or
that these companies, these industries have, right? And the other point that it brings up is like the fact that, I don't know, these big companies control so much, and that it feels that we don't have anything that we can do about it.
Yeah, and for me, it's just I just always remember how much it comes down to money and making money, and how people in the world, like, that's their driving force, is making money, and that's gonna ultimately,
no matter what the cost.
And ultimately, in our society, because success is in our last Discourse video, we talked about how success is determined by how much money you make, and the more money you make, the more successful you are. And until that changes, it's gonna keep happening like that. Like, that's why Coca-Cola, because they know that people would rather buy Coca-Cola than water, so they're gonna make Coca-Cola cheaper so that they buy it more. Because it's full of sugar, and people would rather, uneducated people, or just people who like sugar. Everyone likes sugar, not everyone, but anyways. So that's just such a hard thing to think about, I think. And also, every time I encounter statistics about the water in the world, or it's insane how little fresh water we have.
Yeah, well, even the
drinkable water. Yeah, even in the beginning, even before humans even got to the planet, we had 3%. Like 97% of the world's water is undrinkable, and 3%. And I don't know. I think it's just very easy to just view it as this everlasting resource. Like, water's just it's always been there. It's always going to be there. Like, now I think about every time I flush the toilet, or every time I wash my dishes. Like, this water is drinkable. How many people in the world don't have drinkable water?
Yeah.
And I'm washing my dishes in it, or I'm bathing in it, or I'm
destroying it with the pollution that I'm putting into the environment. Or with all, what blew my mind was even this, it might sound stupid, but when it's raining, and it's supposed to be the cycle, there's the rain, and then the ground absorbs it, and then it goes down a river or something, and then it goes and gets into the ocean, and it gets evaporated again. Well, what we don't think about is that the pavement, there's cracks in the pavement, but it's not absorbing as much water, And then even today at the dump, there's the garbage piles, but once that rain hits the garbage piles, it picks up bacteria and things that can't be...
And gas
that can't be used, which pollutes our water. And so all these things that we're doing to the planet is destroying our water resource, which will ultimately cause wars.
Yeah, water, water's just such, the way, like, my most recent experience with water, the production of, not the production of water, but South Africa, where I was this summer, buys all of its water from Lesotho, which is a tiny country within South Africa. Like, they pay Lesotho $25 billion rand a year for their water, because that's where you get it naturally. That's where they're getting it naturally. But like, how long can that last? Like, how long can one small country's water supply sustain an entire continent?
Well, yeah, and like I was in a place in Africa where we would literally take a bucket and walk 30 minutes to a well and go
Mm-hmm.
collect our water for our shower or for our food. And you know, you learn really quickly that first of all, it's a long way, and that water is actually a lot heavier than they make it look. But I mean, it's a long way to go do that, and you know, you learn that you don't need that much water to wash with, or you don't need that much water to cook with.
The value of water.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, it's. Yeah.
And then the value of water, right? And so then you put, say you want to put some limits on what big companies can, you know, what Nestle or what Coca-Cola can take out, right? Well, then you're limiting water on waste. But should we limit water to everybody's consumption or just to?
And then how much water goes into create like a microchip? Making one microchip takes 32 liters of water. But how many microchips? Cars? How many cars in the world? So, and then when they talk about desalination projects and how the only people who can afford to have that technology are massive companies, which are the same companies that use the most amounts of water, kind of thing.
And which are the same companies that are polluting the water and making plastic water bottles and not doing fair trade and all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of have to look, it makes me think about like a whole bunch of things too, though, is like what the government's best interest is, right? It's not the people living in this world, it's the success of their company. So, I mean, then I look at like my mom with cancer, right? Like cancer, it's a huge sale point because there's so much on who's going to find the cure, let's find the cure, let's fundraise money for this cure. But in my mind, it's complete bullshit because really the companies, the companies should actually be preventing. They could prevent cancer in people by not putting paraffins and phthalates in our makeup or in our sunscreens, or you know, like they could put limitations onto things to protect us, to protect the people, but you know, it just all comes back to that thing of success and money and making money and where money's gonna get you, you know. So I was really interested when they talked about Ryan's well, like the Ryans. I always think it's so cool when you get such a huge issue like water, and then people who don't have water, people who don't have drinkable water, and how that kid heard that kids are dying every day because they don't get enough water. This is grade 1 or grade 2 kid, and then they started this whole foundation. He's still doing it. I mean, he's 19 or 20 right now, and he's still like growing it, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty amazing too.
Yeah. So
the last thing I want to talk about too, I just want to touch on another point, is the fair trade thing. Is when they were talking about how the roses were being grown in Mexico. I don't remember, but they were growing roses, and you know, like the amount they think that they're getting the money for the roses, but actually, because they don't do fair trade, what is it?
I don't really remember the price.
I know. Anyways, but they're putting the fees up, so they're not actually making any money, and they're taking away the water from an already struggling community, so that they're not revitalizing their own earth and their own environment. So I think that's also important to look at when we, as consumers and you know, people who throw away things and buy things, and it's just. It helps to make us look at what we are buying and what we are throwing away.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, and then on a positive note, I guess, and on a positive note is that this, with the same way as garbage and as human problems, it's like, what can you do? Like, you can make sure you don't leave your water on when you brush your teeth. You can, I mean, there are little things you can do to help conserve water. So I think that's also something that you don't think about enough, but you should, because it's something you can do. That's really easy. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.